You're watching AAU Conversations with Verdel Jones. How do you interact with your peers? How do you interact with authority? How do you learn how to be mindful of other people?
Police are known as the gatekeepers of the criminal justice system. That means before the process starts, it has to go through the police.
Welcome to AAU Conversations with Verdel Jones. I'm your host, Verdel Jones. And being an educator at heart, I'm dedicated to sharing relevant and timely information in the hopes that you learn something that you may not have known. And remember, in the words of Maya Angelou, when you learn, teach, and when you get, give. We have an awesome show planned for you today. I'm so excited to bring this information to you. We have a special guest in studio, so I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Before I do that, I want to thank our sponsors, Mr. and Mrs. Roger and Shavonna Johnson. They are the founders of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation, and they're the executive producers of AAU Teen Talk TV. Now, AAU stands for All About Us, and that's what we're about here on AAU Teen Talk TV. For more information on them, you can go to their website. It's wejfoundation.org. So, as I said, I am so excited to have this conversation today. We're going to be talking about careers in the 21st century and preparing for that, the job search. We're going to be talking a little bit about resumes and interviews, and just the changes that, I haven't looked for a job in a long time. So there's a lot of changes and a lot of things that, our young people really need to take into consideration when they're looking for a job. So I have the perfect guest here today to go over that information and to talk to you. He's an author of the book, Rip the Resume, which is going to be out, I believe, in September, the end of this month. So I would encourage everybody to pick it up. I already pre-ordered my copy. So we have in our studio Mr. Torin Ellis. So I want to thank Mr. Ellis for being here. He's a human capitalist strategist, and he's focused on the art of recruiting diverse talent using various creative methods. He has an accomplished background, 17 years in that profession as a human capitalist. In human capitalist efforts, he was in the military as well, served on board of directors of many organizations, and he's dedicated to providing, giving back to his community and helping our youth. He's also a regular on the Karen Hunter Show, which is on Urban View, Sirius Radio, channel 126. So, I listen to that, and he's fabulous on that show. And as I said, he's the author of Rip the Resume. So I want to welcome Torin to the studio.
And in the words of Maya Angelou, since you started it like that, I'm going to contribute to that.
Okay.
Maya says that people may forget what you say, people may forget what you do,
right,
but people will never forget how you make them feel.
Absolutely.
And I love Maya for that, for that posture, for that position, that strong core.
Right.
And I appreciate you for allowing me to just spend a few moments with yourself and the audience.
Thank you. I am so excited, all the way from Be More. So I'm excited that you
and for those of you who don't know, Be More is Baltimore, Maryland. Yes.
So, I just want to jump right into our conversation.
Please do.
Can you let our audience know how you got into this work? What was your journey to this?
So it was pretty simple for me. I was running a sales team for MCI Communications back in the mid-'90s. When I joined MCI Communications, we were being compensated. It was a sales capacity.
Okay.
We were being compensated $7.07 an hour plus commission.
Okay.
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And so when I took the role of being a sales consultant, I told the HR person, I said, I'm going to get promoted in 1 year.
Okay.
And she said, no one has ever been promoted to leadership in 1 year. I got promoted in 11 months.
Wow.
I actually had a chance to get promoted in 10 months, but my writing skills were less than superior according to the people that were judging me.
Okay.
And so another young man, he was able to capture a team because he put together a plan for how he was going to further develop and move that team forward. So they gave him a promotion that came up at the 10-month mark.
Okay.
I practiced for 30 days.
Wow.
Got my plan together, and then I got promoted in 11 months. So My entry into recruitment had absolutely nothing to do with collegiate education. It had nothing to do with career pathing. It had everything to do with ambition.
Okay.
That's all it was. It was my ambition. I knew going into that role that I was an awesome salesperson. I felt like I was an awesome salesperson. I felt like I could develop and motivate and inspire
right.
other people. And so I wanted to become a leader. And upon becoming a leader, when I left MCI in 1998, I decided if I could hire all of these people for MCI,
Right.
then I could start my own business and hire people for a variety of companies.
Okay.
So that's how we got into recruiting.
So you've been in business for yourself for 17 plus years?
Since July 1st, 1998.
Okay. All right. So this is you.
This is what we do.
This is what you do.
Yeah, we don't have a part-time job.
Right.
I don't do anything on the side. I recruit.
Right.
I'm a strategist as it relates to, but the reason for that, Verdel, is because I love being of service,
Okay.
and I'm unapologetic about that. I love being of service to people.
Right.
So I love the work that I
That's
do.
awesome. I can't wait to get more into what you do and how it's done, because I think a lot of people, when you hear recruiting, you're not too sure what it actually means. And I know, when I was doing the intro, we talked about diversity. So what does diversity recruitment mean? Because I know that's something that you specialize in. What does that mean? What does that look like? And what does it mean to you?
Diversity for me is thought. And it's being able to go into organizations and encourage them, convince them, incentivize them, just show them that if they embrace a variety of thought, that they can put themselves in a much better,
Right.
stronger position. So diversity is not just, racial or ethnic or gender-based. It's not just socioeconomic or educationally or
Okay.
geographically based. Diversity is a wide variety
Right.
of different considerations. And what I try to get clients to understand is, because it's so many different variations of considerations that are going into the building of your business, you must embrace all of that. If you want your
Okay.
company and your team to be stronger,
Right.
then you'll have diversity.
And you said it breeds innovation within an organization. The
Absolutely.
more voices, I guess, at the table, so to speak, it's more free-flowing ideas, I think, would be generated from those different voices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can put three of the same individuals. You can put three African Americans in the room
Right.
that are all in education, and all three of them have a different perspective
Absolutely.
about how we should approach education in elementary or middle
Right.
or high school.
Yeah.
But then you start inserting other ethnicities, you start inserting other religions, you start inserting other cultures,
Yeah.
you start inserting other geographical considerations.
Right.
People do education differently
bit
in
differently.
other parts of, so now we have a more robust
Yeah.
process around the education of our children.
Mm.
And quite frankly, I love that example, but we need more diversity, and we need to disrupt, educational systems all around the country.
Right.
Whole nother conversation.
Whole nother conversation, but so
that's,
true.
That's important. And
Absolutely.
Definitely true.
And how do they view that? I'm assuming the companies that would come to you for, to recruit individuals for their company are open to that. Is there any training, or is there anything that that company needs to go through before they realize that this is something they need to do? Or are they coming to you with that in their head already?
I'm smiling because there are some that go through some things
Right.
before they come to me.
Okay.
They've been sued.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They have some sort
Right.
of litigation.
It's a
against them.
reaction. It's not
There's a
proactive
reaction.
sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's a
okay.
reaction. And to be honest, Verdel, what I won't do is I don't chase after organizations
Okay.
that have gone through litigation.
Okay.
That's not the goal for
Right.
me.
Okay.
The goal for me is to work with those that have a genuine interest in pursuing aggressive diversity
Yes.
initiatives.
Right.
And so oftentimes those organizations will come to me because I have a history of doing this type of work.
Right.
And I'm very, very clear. I'm not a trainer. So I don't do diversity
Training, right,
which is
okay.
a billion-dollar plus industry. I'm
Okay.
not in that space. I'm the person who helps an organization explore forensically.
Okay.
What are you doing as it relates to building
interesting.
your
Okay.
talent pipeline, sourcing good quality talent, searching for those individuals, engaging those individuals, and then bringing them into the organization. And then not just leaving them there, but making sure that once they're in the organization, the entire onboarding process is one that's effective as well. So I try to help with the people component, just bringing them to the organization so we can build high-performing teams.
So it's a comprehensive service. I mean, from beginning to, I'm not going to say beginning to end, but I guess it is from beginning to end, going in there and just making sure that they understand what diversity recruiting actually looks like. And is there learning that needs to be done with the companies? They might say, we know we need diversity within our company, but they don't have a true concept of what that might be.
Yeah, but the learning takes place for both of us.
Okay.
For company and myself alike.
Okay, right.
See, I don't go in feeling as if I have all of the answers.
Got it, okay.
I know a lot because I've been recruiting for so long.
Right,
But the value that I bring to them is that I'm an active listener.
okay.
I ask great and engaging questions. Those questions bring out things that they're doing, but then we have a different lens looking at how you're doing it. Why is this process in place?
Okay.
Why are you utilizing this system? Why did you not use this system? You abandoned this one, and I have another client who's using it, and so were we using it ineffectively?
Right.
Where are we sourcing for talent? What schools are we going to? Why only those 5?
Right.
Why not 10 different ones? So it's about asking the right questions and really getting the entire room of leadership, and I really focus on the leaders.
Right.
Getting the room of leadership to understand there really is a different way for us to go about it. Again, if we're genuinely interested.
If we're interested.
We have a strong plan in place. We have the support of leadership.
Right.
And most importantly, they've committed resources to make this happen.
Right.
Those 3 things are extremely important, vital.
Definitely. You know, we were talking a little bit about the trends in finding a job. You know, it's been a long time since I really had to look for a job, and I'm in the field of education, which is, I think we could say it's a little bit different than the real world. So, what are some differences in employment, in job searching? And to me, it's so different. I watched a few videos that you had on LinkedIn, and I was just amazed of it. It's an intricate and detailed process that I really wasn't aware of. So what are the changes in job searches and all of that?
Well, there's several of them. You know, one of them is, where do you find opportunities today?
Right.
Where we used to look for them in the
newspaper, New
on a
York
Sunday.
Times, or
Absolutely.
right.
You know, on Sunday
Absolutely.
you would scurry down to the store, 7-Eleven, or something of the sort, Wawa,
right.
or whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
And you would grab the Sunday newspaper,
Absolutely.
and it'd be this thick of opportunities. Now those opportunities are tweeted to you.
Right.
Those opportunities are showing up in SMS messages on your Android or iOS device. Those opportunities are in little small pixelated ads on Facebook. They're showing up now in your feed on Instagram.
Right.
Companies are beginning to geo-target talent on platforms like Snapchat. So when you think about Snapchat and what young people are doing with it, you have creative people like me who are telling organizations, listen, if we know that it's a fast-growing platform, and you really want diverse talent or this talent or whatever the case may be, then here's how we utilize Snapchat so that we can build brand affinity for your employment. So the job search has changed tremendously because of
drastic.
Technology. And what a lot of people don't understand is that there's a whole industry for that. It's called HR tech or HR technology. And you have companies that are turning out new technologies to better engage with candidates, to use algorithms to predict what candidates are doing. Something that people don't know that's about to happen, and you'll be one of the first to hear it outside of our space, is they are using artificial intelligence and machine learning, combining those technologies to better predict where I'll find Verdel Jones. Let me give you an example. You might open up a blog post about boating.
Okay.
But because you read a blog post about boating, it now thinks that you have an affinity for boating.
Boats. Okay, boating. Right, okay.
And then it uses the technology
Wow.
to almost track where you are going online, and recruiters will be able to see that invisibly, and will reach out to you because we have an opportunity inside of a marine-based organization.
Wow.
Machine learning and artificial intelligence, trust me, you may not see it today. This time next year, it's going to be all over the internet.
Well, I you know, it kind of freaks me out when I'm on, you know, a clothing store, and then I go to my mail, and then that clothing store is you know, on the side on my mail, and it's the same. I mean, this is even more intense, but it's the same type of thing. They're able to track, you know, what you're doing. So companies are even going as far as recruiting and finding employees that way. Very interesting.
So the job search is changing. So you have all of this technology. You have technologies that recruiters are using that the job seeker themselves does not use. How the job seeker is finding opportunity is different. All of that just simply says that in order for you to be competitive, you have to be more prepared. You have to be more in tune. You have to be at least in step with the way things are happening. You can't, as an example, you can't today decide you want to start a Facebook account and think that, you know, Facebook, this game is 15 years beyond you if you're just starting it today.
Wow.
And as a job seeker, too many fall in the category of just logging on today and signing up for a Facebook account and thinking that they're going to be competitive when they're not.
So let's talk about that for a second, because we were going to talk about social media anyway. But so I encouraged our children to get a LinkedIn account early on.
Good.
They were still in high school. Well, our daughter, not our son, because LinkedIn wasn't as popular then, and I didn't really understand the importance of that. So our children, or our let's say our high school students who are going to begin college or the world of work or whatever, they should be doing those things now in high school.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, there's never, it's not too early.
Right.
You have to understand the mechanics of becoming a star candidate, as I say. There are several mechanics in this process. In creating an extremely solid social media footprint is one of those mechanics. Knowing how to build out your LinkedIn profile. Being willing to put up a professional looking photo. It doesn't mean that you have to go to a photographer
and
then
get
it done,
professional, but it needs to look good.
Just do a professional looking photo. The content, how you script out who you are on LinkedIn, how you do your profile on Twitter in those, you know, 180 or 60 characters, if you will. What does your profile look like on Instagram? Why are you using a certain type of email address? All kinds of things are extremely important. So the game has changed, and it's never too early to introduce the young people to why they need to explore these many steps, if you will.
So we're talking about younger, you know, let's say high school students, early college students, and we need them to have a professional online footprint.
Absolutely.
We always encourage our students, look, what you put on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, it stays there. It does not go away. So how do we encourage that at such an early age for them to be as professional as possible online, because that will follow them? You know, how do you encourage that?
Well, part of the way that I do it when I go out to various schools and I deploy the career development boot camp is I actually have a couple of slides where I've taken screenshots of people's social media activity. And I've shown it to the students in the room. I'll mask out who the person is, but I let them see the activity. Here's something that surprises them.
Wow.
I can almost get into any social media account, even if it's private.
Even if it's private,
I can still see some of your activity. There are ways
around that.
And so I just want young people, I just highly encourage them, you got to always be thoughtful of what it is that you're putting out. A lot of people ask me, Torin, why don't you have a professional page and a personal
Right.
Facebook
Yes.
page. I don't mind using my personal. I don't mind a person doing a social media exploration of who I am all the way back, because
Okay.
my contributions in the social media world have always been something that I'm never ever worried about.
Right.
I just encourage young
Yeah.
people, you know, you
That's
can
the
have
thing.
fun. If you want to have fun on your cell phone with text messaging
Okay.
to one another.
Right.
Don't put anything on social media that you don't want a person to see.
Right.
One of my good friends, Alan Katzman, he runs a company called Social Assurity. He's here in New York.
Okay.
What he does is he helps an organization, he helps individuals scrub their social media footprint
Okay.
so that upon graduation, they look a little bit better
Okay.
as it relates to the college of their choice.
Wow. I bet he gets a lot of business.
He gets a ton of business, a ton of business. Yeah, a company called Social Assurity. He gets a ton of business.
sure.
I think I wrote about him in the book. Because there's so many that just don't adhere. They don't adhere to that advice.
No, they don't.
They just
They
feel
don't.
like we are too old, we're
I
being
don't
too
understand.
stodgy,
Right.
we don't know.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so, you know, they
Wow.
put themselves in a very
They
bad
do.
position.
And the same with colleges. You know, we'll let students know. Some colleges, they don't have time to look at all of that, but some really do have the time to take a look at that.
But
and
you-
employers probably do the same types of things.
But you have to understand that if it comes down to you and another
right.
candidate,
That's
and
when
there's
they'll take
nothing
that.
else
Yes.
for us to determine.
That's right.
And we get in a room of people that are trying to make this decision, and they're looking at, well, here's one's social media footprint.
Right.
Versus, there's so many things we can use as a deciding factor.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Social media can be one of those deciding factors, because you are in part
Right.
representing the organization. It's not just you anymore.
Right.
You're now a representative of a company. They may decide to go a different
With
direction.
someone else. And you know what, that kind of ties into the brand, because you always hear people talking about building your brand. We're going to talk a little bit about the resume and building that resume, but I think the brand nowadays seems it's just as important as that resume. So what does that mean, building a brand, and how does that relate to what I would call your resume?
So when you start reading Rip the Resume, the first chapter, I talk about P2,
Okay.
personal and professional brand.
Okay.
And the brand building process is something that you bring to the equation. It's all of your experiences, it's the contributions that people have deposited into you as you were growing up. Every single thing that is who you are is part of the brand building for you. And a lot of young people don't understand that you can shape your brand. You have to learn how to shape your brand. I
Right.
didn't always come out articulate. I wasn't always, even killed. I wasn't always a person who had, a palatable delivery, if you will.
Right.
I would sit in meetings at MCI Communications, and part of the reason why I struggled to grow inside of the organization, I told you I had a top performing team.
Right.
What I'm now telling you is that I would go into a meeting and I was disruptive.
Okay.
I was combative in the meeting
Right.
at 28.
Wow.
Young people need to learn how to do this,
They
but the
need- right,
brand
exactly.
is extremely important. And in my case, my brand was, well, he's combative. So why do we put him in leadership when we can put someone else in
there.
leadership?
That's right.
And so I kept losing out on opportunity because people thought that I was going to blow things up.
Right. So your brand really represents your characteristics, whether it be in person or online.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Rip the Resume is, you describe it as an instructional resource for undergraduate and alumni talent. Why did you decide to write Rip the Resume?
So, really simple. I've worked with thousands of candidates over the last 18 years,
Right.
tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And when I started to recognize that a lot of the tenured talent was unprepared for the interview process, I was like, wow, wait a minute, these people are making $150,000.
Right. Right.
So then I started reaching out to some of my local colleges in Baltimore, and I knew that those children, well, young people at the time, if you will, poorly prepared.
Yeah.
And so Bentley University did a
Oh, yeah.
study in 2014, if I'm
Oh,
not
that's right. I
mistaken.
think you referenced that on
referenced
the
it.
show. Yeah.
Now, mind you, Rip the Resume was conceived in 2008, but their
Wow.
study validated what I had,
What you had. Okay.
uncovered.
Okay.
And the bottom line is 60% of college graduates are unprepared for the workforce, not
believe
because
it.
they lack the technical skills, but because they lack the soft skills, communication,
Right.
teamwork, corporate mores. They don't understand how to move into a professional environment.
Right.
So when I conceived Rip the Resume back in '08, it was really a method for me of trying to continue to push the boundary of progress for young people. Like, I know that I can't be in all places, but
Right.
wherever I am, I want to make sure that those young people are far more prepared
Right.
than the other young people that they're competing against.
Great.
So that's what the book is about.
Great. Well, we have a couple of minutes. We're going to continue this conversation because I really want to get into what a good resume looks like, what do you need to do with your resume, and also interviewing. So, but before we stop this segment and go on to the next, I would like to thank Torin for being here, one. And if you could just let people know, how can they order your book and how can they kind of follow you and keep up with what you're doing?
You know, I appreciate you. So for all of you out there, you can find the book at Amazon.com. Just do a quick search for Rip the Resume, or you can do a search for me, Torin, Torin, last name Ellis. You can find me online, TorinEllis.com, on all of social media at Torin Ellis.
So again, I want to thank Mr. Torin Ellis for being here, and we are going to pick up this conversation. For those of you who are watching live, make sure you don't tune out because we're going to tune back up again in a few minutes. So thank you for watching AAU Teen Talk TV, Conversations with Verdel Jones. Welcome. You're watching AAU Conversations with Verdel Jones. How do you interact with your peers? How do you interact with authority? How do you learn how to be mindful of other people?
Police are known as the gatekeepers of the criminal justice system. That means before the process starts, it has to go through the system.
Welcome to AAU Teen Talk TV. You're watching Conversations with Verdel Jones, and I'm your host, Verdel Jones. Being an educator at heart, I'm dedicated to sharing relevant and timely information in the hopes that you learn something that you may not have known. And remember, in the words of Maya Angelou, when you learn, teach, and when you get, give. We have an exciting show planned for you today. We're going to be talking about careers in the 21st century. But before I do that, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Mr. and Mrs. Roger and Shavonna Johnson. They are the founders of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation, and they are the executive producers of AAU Teen Talk TV. AAU stands for All About Us, and that's what we're about here on AAU Teen Talk TV. For more information, you can visit their website at wejfoundation.org. So I want to get started because we had a great first session. We are talking to Mr. Torin Ellis. He's a human capital strategist. He's focused on the art of recruiting diverse talent. He has an accomplished background that includes 17 years of human capital efforts, military service, several board of director appointments, and he has an unwavering an unwavering spirit to give back to the community and help our young people. So we are so excited to have him. He's also a regular guest on the Karen Hunter Show on Urban View on Channel 126 and Sirius Radio. So, and he's also the author of a new book called Rip the Resume, and we're going to talk a lot about that, get into more about that book. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Torin Ellis.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, thank you. We had a great conversation talking about just a lot of things in reference to the recruitment process and what that looks like. You know, as I was explaining, things have changed drastically since I was looking for a job, and being in the field of education that I am, it's a little bit different. You know, some things are similar, I would guess, now as far as education. Like, I know a lot of people, you know, get recruited to work in Dubai and you know, Abu Dhabi and all of that overseas. And a lot of that is through LinkedIn and social media and things like that. So I know that part of education is a little bit similar, I guess. But things really have drastically changed. So I want to get into it. We were talking about Rip the Resume. This is your new book. You're talking about why you wrote it, but I want to get into the piece that deals with the resume itself. Resume is probably a little bit different than your typical what you would think resume, or maybe it's not. Just explain what a resume of today looks like.
Well, one, today's resume is most likely somewhere in the cloud.
Mm-hmm. Right.
A person has drafted it and they've moved it away from their computer, and it's sitting out in, you know, internet space, if you will, and it's accessible from any mobile or internet connected device.
Right.
Important to note that we are moving toward the fourth revolution at this point. So resumes are going to continue to change.
Yeah.
And so in some way, I asked myself, is now too late of a time to write a book about the traditional resume? And then I responded with the answer of, no, it's not too late. Because just like they thought in 1999 that when sites like Career Builder and Headhunter.net
Monster and all that, right,
came on board, that it would do away with us as recruiters.
Right.
We're still here, and we're even stronger. We're even more valuable now. So I said to myself, no, it's not too late to make sure that a timeless document like a resume is still put together wonderfully. Artwork, similar to the bracelets that you have on your wrist, colorful, different, but they match.
Right.
They complement one another.
Okay.
It works, all of it. And so I think a lot of people struggle with, how do I bring all of this together so that I can make it a compliment, I make it attractive, aesthetically pleasing, and it conveys a very nice flowing story. A lot of people don't know how to do that. And so Rip the Resume is timely today.
Got it.
And I personally feel when we do Rip the Resume 2 next year, and when we do Rip the Resume 3, or we go digital, or we do whatever we want in terms of translating it to another language, that it's going to continue to be applicable.
Right. So making a resume look aesthetically pleasing, that was one of the things that you had mentioned.
Sure.
But not only that, you know, the content, what's in it is important.
Absolutely.
But that aesthetically pleasing, because I hire people and I see their resumes, and some resumes are, I can't believe they're horrible. They look so bad you don't want to read them. So just a tip that you could give someone in reference to creating that aesthetically pleasing looking resume. Are there some things that people should be aware of, or is it, if you're in a certain field, is it different, and how does that work?
So I'll give you two words.
Okay.
Detailed, minimalist.
Okay. Yes.
So a detailed individual that can convey thoughtful contributions, but that you operate with the mindset of a minimalist, someone who doesn't want to clutter their surroundings.
Okay.
That piece of paper is your real estate. You don't drop every single thing that you can, and you really force it into that 8.5 by 11. That's clutter.
Yes.
Paper-based clutter. So I just want people to understand that if they write and think and deliver thoughtfully with detail, and that if they leave white space so that my eyes can see the rim and the edges of the paper, that my eyes can easily see the various sections that are on the document, then it's an easier experience, a better experience for me, for as the recruiter or as a human resource person, hiring manager, I don't want to struggle in reading your document and trying to force myself to see where did you make a contribution.
Right.
And is it hidden in that paragraph, or what does this line right here have to do with this job up here? And do you, some people will give you a document, and you remember when you were growing up in school, they would put a list of items on the left side and a list of items on the right.
Yes.
And you had to
to
draw a line to connect.
Correct.
People do resumes in that fashion where I'm forced to try to draw lines up and down to connect. No, you don't want to make me have to work that hard.
Right.
So we have given you a process and a formula for how to put together a structured document. Basically what I did within Verdel is I said, we can deconstruct your resume.
Right.
This is the reason why I'm going to tear it down. And then here's how I'm going to build you back up.
Build it up. Okay.
And if you do that once, you'll never have to do that entire process again.
Right.
You'll just keep adding on to it.
Okay.
But you'll never have to reconstruct it again. Last thing that I'll say is that there's no right way to do a resume.
Okay.
There's just 1,000 wrong ways to do it.
Okay.
So what I want to do is keep you closer to the right side and not the 1,000 wrong ways on the other side.
So we, with younger workers or potential, employees, we try to say, or I've heard that they should keep it to one page. You're new to a profession, to a career. That you don't need 3 pages of a resume. You should only have one. Is that true for newly or recently graduated college students, let's say?
If they don't have the experience to support 2 pages, then 1 will suffice.
Okay.
If I can get 2 pages out of you, I want 2 pages. If I can only get a page and a half, I'll take the page and a half. If I get a page and 2 lines, then that means I need to chop something on the front so that I can get it back to 1 page.
Okay.
Again, aesthetically pleasing. I don't want to give you a whole page and 2 lines on another page. It's just a waste, if you will. But I also am not going to shove across 3 different pieces of paper because I'm trying to capture everything that I've done. Rule of thumb, we look back 10 years. That's what's most important for us. You may have worked for the last 20 years. You can capture the additional 10 in a way that is very succinct.
Yes.
But I want detail just for 10, maybe 15 years. Anything over that, you're losing me. The technology is probably entirely different. The industry that you were in is probably changed.
Right, it's 10 years.
There's so many reasons why I don't need to see 20 years worth of history. I want detail on 10.
Okay.
So I'm that way on both sides of the equation. I work and consult with a lot of business people, and some of those businesses will do 5-year business plans.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of 5-year business plans. Technology changes too fast.
Right.
The financial infrastructures change too fast. The economy changes too fast.
Right.
So 3 years, 18 months, 24 months, 3 years, small, bite-sized, manageable steps. That's the same thing that I want to see in your resume document.
And should the resume, because the term functional resume, I was a business teacher before I was a counselor and then administrator, and functional resumes is something that, the different formats, like you said, there's a lot of ways that you could do it. So for someone just starting out who doesn't have a lot of different, they have skill sets, how can they get those skill sets across, even though they might have limited experience or they might have varied experience, but we want to make sure that we get those skill sets that they have from little jobs that they may have had when they were younger, let's say.
So I would explore, laying out maybe a professional summary or a character summary.
Right.
Who are you as an individual? Give me 3, maybe 4 bullet points of who you are at the very top. Mind you, this is below your address.
Right.
But a professional summary or a character summary, that'll work. Awards and accomplishments. You might give me a few of those.
Right.
If you'd like, you can put your educational experience right there. Some people drop educational experience all the way to the bottom.
Yes.
Then in the middle, give me the body of what it is that you've done on a professional basis.
Right.
When I say professional, I'm also including volunteer.
Okay.
A lot of young people may not have worked at a job where they had a W-2 or some sort of compensation. It may have been internships or volunteer work.
Right.
So you need to capture that information, and you need to be able to explain to me this is what I learned, this is my contribution, here's the value to you. As long as you can do that, then I'm satisfied with the document.
So answering those specific questions.
Absolutely. What was the experience?
Right.
What was your contribution?
Right.
And here's the value to you.
Right.
Experience, contribution, value to you. I have to be able to look at that document and see those three things, because I'm evaluating you based on if I invest and bring you in my organization, then I am going to get some level of an ROI on that investment, sooner rather than later.
Okay.
So I need to know what's the value of all of this experience to me in the business that I'm building.
So it's, because you get caught up into trying to explain what you do, because you think that they might not understand what it is, what company you do, or say you're involved in a club or an organization, you have to explain what that company or organization does. But it's really not about that. It's about just what you said. What did you learn, and what value do I bring to the table?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think you get caught up in trying to explain everything that you do as opposed to just telling what you do.
And to that end, one thing that I encourage people is try to stay away from acronyms, because your acronyms are germane to your industry. And again, you want to make it, and it's not to say don't use them. You have to use them in context. Give me the full explanation of the acronym, then use the acronym in parentheses, and then going forward, you can use the acronym. I need to know what that is. When you're making me guess, then I'm willing to abandon consideration of you as a candidate, because I have to do too much work. Recruiters and HR people, they like it to be, I don't want to say easy, but they don't want to have to jump through any unnecessary hoops to get to the candidate of choice. Because remember, we have 400 people applying for a role. So if I got to do a whole lot of trying to figure out, I'm just going to go to the next candidate.
Next one. And you know what, we were talking a little bit about networking, I think off camera, I don't even remember, but we were talking about networking. And how important is that? Because a lot of jobs that are out there, you might hear word of mouth, or it might be someone knows something, or a job might open up that wasn't even in existence before. So what's the importance of networking, and especially for our young people, and understanding what that actually means, and what do you do, and what is that about? Why is it so important? Just like internships, it's so important. Just to maybe speak a little bit about that.
Well, you just said it. I mean, it's extremely important. And for years, I used to have on my voicemail, make the most of your time, talent, and treasure. And people would always ask or think or assume the third piece, treasure, was money. It was about people. Make the most of your interactions and opportunities to engage with new people. In the book, I talk about making sure that you meet new people each and every week. New people. People always ask me, how is it that you sit in the room with the CEO of McCormick or the CEO of Johns Hopkins University or the mayor or the governor? How do you sit in these rooms and engage with them? Because I grew up in Davenport, Iowa, where I was one of the few minorities in the different settings that I was in. I served in the military in the Philippines, in a country when I was 18 years old. I didn't speak the language, but I got out among the people. I didn't want to necessarily associate only with other servicemen and women. I wanted to learn the culture, if you will. New people. Learning new people is critical.
And what is a tip for someone who has a hard time doing that?
You got to get out of your shell.
You
know, I don't sugarcoat. You have to get out of your shell. So you have to figure out how do you do it? Become comfortable. And one of the most important and easiest tips to employ is just to ask questions. People like to hear themselves talk.
Yes,
so like
we do.
If the table was turned right now and I'm not the one on camera being interviewed, literally I'd be in love with the fact that I can pick your brain for a few moments. I can pick the producer's brain for a few moments, and I can ask questions. And the strategy for me is to always figure out, well, what's the next question going to be? Well, when you tell me this, what is it that I want to know about that? Figure out how to engage other people. So if you're not an outgoing individual, just figure out how to say hello,
Right.
and ask a question.
And ask that question.
It's not that hard.
For some people.
Yeah.
But it's a learned skill. And like you said, you have to break out of your comfort zone. Nothing that, to get to the things or the places or meet the people that you want to meet, you have to sometimes break out of that comfort zone.
You have to.
That's the only way that it's going to happen for you. And I think if people and students and younger people in particular realize that, I think they would have an easier time of making that happen.
And you got to look up,
themselves,
like face-to-face contact is
Right.
extremely important. When you walk down and you see people, we are so
Yes.
buried. I said
Yeah.
we.
Right.
I didn't say them.
Yep.
I said we. We are
Our
so
culture.
buried in our phones
Right.
and our laptops and other digital devices.
Sure.
So we have to disconnect. People smile because they say, Torin, you are serious about turning your phone off at 8 o'clock. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I turn my phone off every evening at 8 p.m. No matter what.
You have
I turn
to.
it off.
Yeah.
Disconnect. But
Right.
when we get in environments with other people, stick the phone in your pocket, throw it in your breast pocket,
Right.
in your handbag if you're a woman, and just engage with people.
Yeah.
Feels so much better.
It really does.
So much better.
It is. It's about that energy and, and just, being in the presence of others.
Well, like you,
know?
when we asked, when we
Right.
when we talked about it, I
That's
said,
right.
what did we say? Skype
Or
and we said the
phone
energy
or whatever.
would be different.
Yes.
And I said, you know
absolutely.
what? We're going to make the trip
Right.
so that we can experience
That.
the energy.
Yep.
I wanted to get face to face so we can
important.
enjoy
Right.
the energy.
Absolutely. So we were talking, I want to bring up culture.
Sure.
Culture within an organization. And
Important.
it's so important. But how can someone looking for a job or looking to get in a specific company or have a specific career, how are they to know what the culture of the company is going to be? And why should that be important to them?
They won't know what it's going to be per
Yeah.
se, but it's incumbent upon them to try to find out.
Okay.
So one of the things that I
Yeah.
encourage candidates to do, when you are just a candidate in research mode, I'm going to call Madhouse TV. And I'm going to tell them that I work for the Baltimore Sun or the Baltimore Times or I'm a student at Towson University or Morgan
Right.
State. And I'm doing a story on workplace culture inside of production companies. Now, I'm not doing a story,
Right.
but I've already formulated a couple of questions that will allow me to ascertain what's it like to work at Madhouse TV. So I've already called and I've spoken with someone and I've got them on the record for the story.
Right.
But now I go to LinkedIn and I start looking at other people's comments and recommendations. And I may call a Verdel Jones who once worked for Madhouse. What was it like to work there? And I may go to Glassdoor and read the reviews
Right,
of
right,
what's it
right.
like to work at Mad. So I'm putting all of this data together to help me understand when I get an interview.
Yeah.
Now I have a different type of interview based on what research I was able to uncover. You have a responsibility to try to learn what that culture is like because I can tell you most people, they don't leave jobs because of compensation. They leave jobs because of a lack of recognition.
Right. Oh,
Recognition
absolutely.
is part of the culture.
Absolutely.
If you are not being
Absolutely.
recognized, people leave and go
That's
work
right.
someplace where they are appreciated.
Yep.
So you can kind
That's
of
right.
find that out before you even start the interview process.
Right. Yeah. I love that one of the things that I tell parents and students to do when they're looking at college campus, visiting college campuses, is to go into the administrative offices.
Sure.
When you go into those administrative offices, how are people treating you?
Sure.
Are they blowing you off, or are they very helpful? That gives you an indication of the culture. Go to different offices that a visiting student might not go to,
Absolutely.
and you can really get a sense of what's going on that campus.
Perfect analogy. Perfect.
Absolutely. Let's get into the interviewing. Okay. Interviewing is so important. There's a couple of things I just wanted to ask you about in reference to that.
Sure.
One is the attire. Like I said, I hire people, in my role. And one of the things as an interviewer that turns me off is probably not, I don't like, is a woman that comes in, and this, I don't know if this is sexist, but a woman who comes in with open-toe shoes. That's something as an interviewer, you should be professional. You should come in a suit. And does it depend on the job, or does it not matter? I don't know. That's a little picky, but
Well, that is picky. But you know what category that goes? That's a bias.
it's a bias.
That's a bias
right,
for
it
you.
is.
So let
It
me just say
is.
that for those of you who are looking, open-toe shoes are not non-professional. Miss
I have
Verdel
one today,
Jones,
but,
Miss Verdel Jones is extremely professional. So it works like the way that I approach it is you have to at least mirror the environment that
Okay.
you are interviewing into,
Right.
or you level
A little
up.
bit. Right. Okay.
So because I didn't know how you might have been dressed today, I decided that we would do suit jacket,
Right.
square, and the
Right.
whole nine, because I wanted to make sure that I at least mirrored
Right.
the
Okay.
presentation that you would provide on camera. And so
Right.
I think that it's extremely important for young people and older tenured employees alike. You have to always mirror the environment. You can never be overdressed.
Right. Right.
You can never be overdressed. There's nothing wrong with, as a man, being professionally dressed
Right.
inside of a casual environment. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a woman being fully clothed in a nice professional
Right.
suit, if you will,
Right.
in a casual, millennial generated heavy tech
Right.
environment. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But you can be underdressed.
Absolutely.
And so I'd rather be overdressed
Then
anytime
that's a good tip.
than underdressed.
Right. When people go into an interview, there's a little bit of trepidation, sometimes
Lot.
nervousness,
Yeah.
all of that. What are some mistakes that people make during the interview process? And that could be face to face. I mean, there's a lot of steps to the interview process also, but I would say the actual sit down interview. What are some mistakes that people make?
Poorly prepared, number one. They have not done the proper research on
right.
the organization. So I would say that preparation is definitely important. In preparation, immediately behind that is the questioning strategy
Right.
that they use as a candidate. If you don't have a solid questioning strategy so that you can walk away from that experience with a better understanding of who this company is and where they're going and how you'll be evaluated, you've done yourself a disservice. Third thing that I think that candidates do in terms of a mistake is they don't understand the exchange of power that takes place in an interview. And so typically in an interview, what I coach my candidates to understand is when Ms. Verdel Jones is lobbing the questions to me, I'm going to sit back from the desk.
Right.
I'm going to allow her, or shall I say, give her the appearance of being in control.
Absolutely.
When she says, Mr. Ellis, do you have any questions for me? I'm going to lean forward and
Right.
I'm going to engage with Ms. Verdel Jones. And when I'm done with my 5 questions, and only 5,
Okay.
when I'm done with my 5 questions, then I'm going to fall back in my chair so
Right.
that she understands I'm done and now you can have the floor back because it's all up to you.
Okay.
So I don't think that candidates understand there are a lot of things. That's why we put the book together, because we want candidates to understand it's more than just throwing some words on a piece of paper, showing up,
Right.
and asking questions about vacation and where will I sit and how much will I be paid.
Where's my office and does it have a window? Right.
I have
Right.
grown candidates who say, what are my responsibilities? How many vacation days, or when can I take vacation?
Oh, no.
And how much does the job pay?
Right. No.
Those are not any of the 5 questions
That you should ask.
that you should ask. So, just 3 things of the many that can go wrong in an interview, but those are 3 that are very, very consistent.
Yeah.
Poorly prepared, poor questioning strategies, and they don't understand the shift in power
Right.
that takes place in
Interesting.
that conversation.
I love it. So I want to thank Mr. Torin Ellis for being here. Awesome information. Make sure you go out and buy the book, Rip the Resume. Before we go, I just want to thank you for coming, and I want you to let people know where they can get the book and how they can follow you.
So again, I do appreciate you for allowing me just this time to exchange and to be in front of your audience, an audience that trusts you. You can find me online at torinellis.com. You can purchase the book doing a quick search on amazon.com or anywhere where books are sold. And last but not least, I'm on all of social media at Torin Ellis. That's Torin, as in negotiate, as in Sam.
Again, I want to thank you so much for being here today. Great conversation, a lot of information. I cannot wait to get my book and, and really go through it and help our students and my children as well. So I want to thank everybody for watching today. AAU Teen Talk TV, Conversations with Verdel Jones. Have a good one.